Welcome to the series on the essentials. A headline I read a couple of weeks ago concerning the news on the current pandemic read something like this. It said, "Stop panic buying, essential goods in bountiful supply." And at that moment, I realized that something that we've been talking about for weeks was becoming a living reality. You see, a crisis, however unexpected it is, when it strikes us, it doesn't shock us, because crisis is a part of life. But what we don't expect is for crisis to become personal. We don't expect that something like this is happening to me. On the other hand, as human beings, we are so autonomously driven for control. We don't do very well with uncertainty. Hence the panic, hence the doubt, hence the hoarding. And so how do we as Christians rightfully respond to this crisis, or for that matter, any crisis? Because you see, the essentials that we're running to stock up, they have a shelf life. They will run out someday. But what will not run out, my dear friends, are the essentials from the bountiful supply of the Word of God that have proven through the ages, crisis after crisis, to be trustworthy and to meet our need in any situation. We are in a season of Easter, and one of my favorite stories of the post-resurrection is the story of the disciples' walk at Emmaus. We find that account in Luke chapter 24. And in this narrative, we find two disciples of Jesus leaving Jerusalem, sad and sorrowful, onward a little village called Emmaus. Sad and sorrowful because the events following the cross have left them numb with grief. Jesus is brutally killed on the cross, and there's darkness everywhere. And this hope, this freedom, this liberation that the Messiah had promised is no longer a living reality in their lives. Disappointment, broken hearts, shattered dreams is what they're carrying on this journey. They have lost sight of their spiritual supplies. And it is precisely here that the risen Christ meets with them, making himself a traveling companion on the journey, and he begins to dialogue with them. "But we had hoped," they said, hoped. Past tense, faith had entered a crisis. And yet I love the response of Jesus. He doesn't judge them or condemn them. He doesn't admonish them or offer them preaching sermons. But he enters into that broken road with them. He walks with them. He listens, he dialogues, he waits, he comforts. And then he opens the essentials from the Word of God. And there they recognize him as he is fully revealed as the Word made flesh, dwelling among them, walking with them. They are not alone. In the words of the great Saint John Paul II, "In the shadows of the passing day and in the darkness that clouded their spirit, the wayfarer had brought a ray of light, kindling their hope." Now, my dear friends, that journey finds a new meaning, because light begins to shine and hope begins to rise, not in the absence of pain, but through it. You see, the persecution that waited for them in Jerusalem, that had not vanished, but now they found meaning and purpose in that suffering. You see, as Christians, the gospel doesn't offer us any false illusions that our burdens will be magically erased, but rather it offers us a steady assurance that our burdens are shared on strong shoulders that have carried the weight of the world. Today, you and I are in a desperate need of a spiritual stock-up. The world is in a crisis and in a panic mode. But as Christians, we're not called to be in a panic mode. We're not called to be in a surviving mode. We're called to be in a thriving mode. And the essentials from the Word of God will give us everything we need to thrive in any situation, be this crisis or even after the crisis. Remember, the aftermath of the crisis is equally, if not even far more important than the crisis itself. In my own experience, I have seen wounds and scars. Bitterness and blame is usually what happens when the crisis is over. The essentials that meet our needs now are the essentials that are going to meet our need tomorrow. And so my prayer for you, as I pray for myself, is that as we soak up on the imperishable essentials of the Word of God, May our hearts, like the disciples, begin to burn, and may their prayer becomes the prayer of our hearts. Stay with us, Lord. Stay with us. God bless. And don't forget to stock up on the essentials.